I had some troubles while I was away from the channel and had to be away for a while. Now I'm back to provide you with better content from every corner of nature and the sights of our beautiful world. I hope you will support us with your likes and subscribes as before. Thank you. The Republic of Iceland is an island country in northern Europe, an island in the North Atlantic Ocean. Its capital and largest city is Reykjavik, and the country has a population of 341,243, 2020. The country's currency is the Icelandic krona and its official language is Icelandic. 93.36% of its people are Icelanders, who are of Germanic descent, and the rest are mainly immigrants from other European countries. About 88% of the country's people are Christians, most of whom follow the Protestant faith. Iceland gained independence from Denmark on December 1, 1918. Iceland, which was one of the poorest countries in the world until the 20th century, achieved prosperity in the years after World War II by industrializing its fishing industry and receiving aid from the Marshall Plan, and was able to become one of the most prosperous countries in the world in the 1990s and even ranked first among the countries in the world in terms of the Human Development Index in 2005. Iceland has a free market and the tax rate in this country is relatively low compared to other members of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. In 2008, the country's banking system faced a major crisis, leading to political unrest, the effects of which have not yet fully recovered. However, according to the United Nations, Iceland was the 14th most developed country in the world in 2011. Iceland is slightly larger than South Korea at 103,070 square kilometers, and the island's southwestern fringes are home to two-thirds of the country's population. The country's terrain is volcanically and geologically active, with many geysers and geothermal energy available in many places. Iceland, which is located slightly below the Arctic Circle, has a cold and polar climate, but the presence of moderate air fronts has reduced the extreme cold of the island. The interior of the island consists mostly of a plateau covered with sand dunes, mountains, and glaciers. A large number of rivers originating from these glaciers also flow through lower lands to the sea. Permanent human settlement in Iceland began in 874, when Ingolf Arnarsson, a chieftain from Norway, came to the island with his people and settled there permanently. Before him, other people came to Iceland seasonally and temporarily. Iceland was part of the Kingdom of Norway from 1262 to 1918, and then part of the Kingdom of Denmark, and gained independence in 1918. Currently, Iceland is the least populous member of NATO and the only member of this organization that does not have a standing army. The Danish embassy in Tehran handles visas for Iceland. Iceland is a member of the Schengen Agreement. Iceland was founded more than 1,000 years ago during the Viking Age, and was inhabited by a mixed population of Norse and Celts. The first people to settle in Iceland were a group of Irish priests who arrived in the 7th and 8th centuries. These priests were driven out of Iceland by the Vikings in the 9th century. The Norwegian Vikings discovered Iceland in the 869s. According to ancient legends, the first Viking to discover Iceland was a man named Nidor, who lost his way on his way to the Faroe Islands and arrived in Iceland after a long sea voyage. The first Viking attempt to permanently settle in Iceland was made by a man named Fjolur Vilgrason. He landed in the northwest of the island, but the harsh winter of that year killed his livestock and he returned to Norway. Floki Vilgrodson was the one who gave the island the name Iceland, meaning land of ice. Later settlers came to Iceland from Norway and the Viking nomads of the British Isles from around 871, led by a Norwegian named Ingolf Arnarsson. Arnarsson settled in Reykjavik with his family, slaves, and animals. The voyages of Icelandic Norse seafarers and adventurers subsequently took them to Greenland and the coast of North America, which the Norse called Vinland. Despite its geographical isolation, Scotland, Iceland's closest European neighbor, is 800 kilometers away. Iceland has remained largely a part of European civilization throughout its history. The Icelandic sagas, most of which recount heroic tales of the early settlement of the island, are considered one of the finest literary achievements of medieval Europe. In 930 AD, the population of Iceland reached about 30,000 to 40,000. In this year, the first assembly of elders, the Alling, was convened in a place called Þingvellir, and since then the Icelandic parliament has been called the Alling. Iceland was part of the Kingdom of Norway from 1262 to 1918, and then part of the Kingdom of Denmark. Icelandic nationalism grew in the 19th century, and in 1918 the country became independent from Denmark. However, the two countries were united by their common monarchy. During World War II, the Danish Union was severed, and in 1944 it was declared a republic. In the 1950s and 1970s, disputes over fishing rights in Icelandic coastal waters led to clashes with the British Navy. These conflicts, known as the Fish Oil Wars, included three wars. The First War of 1958, the Second War of 1973–1972, the Third War of 1976–1975. Iceland, with an area of 102,819 square kilometers, is the 18th largest island in the world and the second largest island in Europe, after the island of Great Britain. The country consists of one large island and 30 small islands in the North Atlantic Ocean, which are located slightly below the Arctic Circle. Iceland is closer to the European continent than to North America, and is therefore generally considered a European island historically, politically, and culturally. Iceland is 970 kilometers from Norway, 798 kilometers from Scotland, and 287 kilometers from Greenland. Iceland is a volcanic region, which has many hot springs and a cover of ice and volcanic ash covers the surface of the island. Iceland has 4,970 kilometers of coastline, which includes a large number of fjords, and most of Iceland's settlements are also formed in these fjords. Iceland has a cold, polar climate, but is somewhat influenced by temperate fronts. The warm Gulf Stream currents on the southern coast of Iceland cause a relative increase in temperature and prevent widespread frosts in winter. More than half of the main island of Iceland is a plateau that is 400 meters above sea level and lacks significant vegetation. 12% of Iceland's area is covered by glaciers, which are the accumulation of winter snowfall in Iceland. 1/10 of Iceland's surface is covered by the remains of volcanic eruptions that have occurred in the past 10,000 years. There are 25 active volcanoes in Iceland, the most important of which are Jökull with a height of 2,119 meters, Helga with a height of 1,520 meters, and Snæfellsjökull with a height of 1,146 meters. There are about 300 steam wells scattered throughout Iceland, which are potential geothermal resources and are used to generate electricity and thermal energy. Iceland has nearly 1,800 lakes, the largest of which is Lake Thingvallavatn, with an area of 84 square kilometers and a depth of 114 meters. There are also more than 250 rivers flowing through the island, the longest of which is the Piorsa River, with a length of 237 kilometers.